You heard me mention at the top there, Frank Warren versus Ben Shalom, the old stalwart versus the new kid on the block. Normally it's Frank Warren versus Eddie Hearn, so Eddie's going to be happy that he's not got the wrath of Frank Warren this week for once.
Frank Warren versus Dillian White's lawyer.
It could be that as well. Could be Frank Warren versus everyone, if I'm honest with you. Let's give a bit of background to what we're talking about before we bring in the Catman and before we hear from one of the fighters in question as well. So Frank Warren on the Tyson Fury versus Dillian White fight, obviously very excited, big crowd, announced that Joseph Parker is going to fight Joe Joyce. Fantastic fight, two guys definitely within your top 10. Joseph Parker at the time, a free agent. Joseph Parker then has gone and signed with Sky Sports and Boxer, which is under the Ben Shalom umbrella, and that fight is now dead in the water. Ben Shalom has offered Joe Joyce $1.2 million to then go on to Sky Sports and fight Joseph Parker. A lot of confusing tales, a lot of people he said, she said type things going on. Before we speak to Adam Cattrall and get his take on it, let's hear from one of the fighters in question. This is what Joseph Parker had to say about the bid. He said Frank Warren didn't offer him a solid bid.
Yeah, I was offered a better deal. But listen, Frankie said whatever he wants to say. He kept changing the deal. The contract kept changing, and that's why it took so long to lock in. We were so close to locking in, but every time he came back, it was different. There was something always different in it. And then, I said to him that I could make the fight happen. He shook my hand at one deal, and all of a sudden went back and changed the deal. So, listen, we can go back and forth and say this and say that, but why don't we just make the fight happen? Just because he's on BT Sports and I'm on Sky doesn't mean we can't make it happen. It's all egos, I think.
Yeah, this is Joseph Parker, the fantastic fighter, former world champion, speaking to Adam Cattrall. I think it was yourself he's actually speaking to, wasn't it, the Catman?
Yeah.
On Fight Night. Let's talk about this situation. First, the fans miss out here, by the way, because I think this would have been a fantastic fight, Joe Joyce versus Joseph Parker, especially watching Joseph Parker put in a performance against Derek Chisora under obviously new tutelage now with Andy Lee. Can it still happen? I mean, 1.2 million is a lot of money that Sky are offering Joe Joyce to come over and fight on Sky Sports. How realistic is it, though?
Mate, this is mad. This is boxing. And this is why there'll be people listening to your show today, guys. They'll go, oh, boxing's mad. Absolute crackers. What does it matter what channel people are aligned to or what promoter they're aligned to? I just want to see the fight that they promised me when we were all at Wembley. We saw two guys there squaring off. I thought this is a nice fight, especially with the heavyweight championships all being kind of tied up for a bit. Let's get these guys on there. The number one and number two ranked with the WBO. Obviously, that fight announcement was made without a signed contract. That's error number one. Then,
big time schoolboy error.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So then you've got Joseph Parker, who then, instead of obviously continuing those negotiations, goes and signs a different deal, which obviously is financially beneficial for him. But there's absolutely no reason why that fight can't be made. They're all big boys. They've all got bags of experience of how to go and make a fight. If you really want the fight, you can make the fight. Let's sit down and make the best deal possible for both fighters. I don't care what channel it's on. I don't care who promotes it. I don't care what stadium it's in. I just want to see the knock. It'll be brilliant.
Yeah, it would be brilliant. And look, we're going to speak to Joe Joyce in a few minutes, and we'll ask him the questions as well. Can he go over to Sky?
The reality of boxing isn't just as linear as that.
No, it isn't.
We also know that back in the day when Tyson was signed to HBO or wherever else he was signed to, and the fights were being made difficult to make when he fought Michael Spinks, there does sometimes need to be somebody in the middle, like when Trump made that fight between Spinks and Tyson because he put warring parties to one side. This is a classic case of Frank doing to others what was done to him with Mickey Duff and Terry Lawless and looking at this, you young pup, what do you know? We're not going to let you in the game. And Ben is coming along at 27 years of age. He's as smart as paint. He has very different outlooks towards the boxing landscape with very different vantage points about where he wants to take it and what he wants to do with it and how he's going to do it and how he's going to break up the existing framework of what Eddie's doing and what Frank is doing and how they all hang together. But what you've got is a fight that actually absolutely can be made. There's no reason why it can't be made. And what Frank is doing is just schooling Ben and putting him back in his box from a position of, I'm wiser than you, I know what I'm doing. And actually, look at the fight I just put on with Tyson Fury. He can't complain about the economics of the fight, because if it's about the economics of it, then Frank will have to sit back and say, well, everyone, Eddie bid for the Dillian White Tyson Fury fight and you overbid for that. And no one turned around and said, you don't know what you're doing there. So I'm not entirely sure that Frank's observation I like Frank, I like George, and I'm very fond of Ben as well, and I think they all add value to the game. But as you say, Adam, the fight making the fight rather than promoters posturing one another is more interesting to the end user.
Frank took to Twitter last night, didn't he? Well, I say Frank took to Twitter. Someone that runs Frank Foran's Twitter page took to Twitter and said, look, how not to make a fight 101. Get everything you want in a contract and then not sign it. Sign with a broadcaster that the guy you want to fight doesn't box on. Make face-saving offer for a fight you know can't happen. Welcome to Ben Shalom's first rodeo.
You're right in what you said. Frank didn't tweet.
Do you think Frank's the type of guy who would let somebody else be tweeting?
Absolutely.
I'm not sure.
Absolutely. That's not him handling that Twitter. And there's no problem. There's a lot of people that do that, but that's not Frank's kind of language. I'll tell you that now.
The disappointing thing for all fans there is that point number 3, which says make face-saving offer for a fight that you know that can't happen. Why can't the fight happen? The best solution right now for this would be for the WBO to get involved and say, right, okay, then we'll sanction an eliminator for the world title, number 1 versus number 2, and therefore, if these two teams can't come to an agreement between themselves, they'll go to purse bids, and you've got to bid on it.
Yeah.
And if you want to be fighting for the number 1 slot, to be fighting the WBO champion, then you've got to win that purse bid and get the fight on, because the fans need to see that fight. We were promised it, so let's get it on.
Haven't you got all the numbers? Can't you call them and have a word?
Get them round the table.
I'll ring the WBO now, and we'll get them on now. Yeah, let's get them going.
The worst thing, if you are Joe Joyce, obviously, look, you've been angling for a fight. Look, we're going to talk to Joe Joyce. He's got Christian Hamer coming up, and it's not a bad lastminute.com replacement, but that's not what he wants. He wants to fight someone within the top 10.
No, and what you're saying there, Addy, you're 100% right. As a last minute, 2 weeks to go opponent, people go, okay, I can understand that. But we've now got Joseph Parker likely to fight Lucas Brown.
I know.
Come on, man.
Come on.
Who wants to see that? Nobody wants to see that. We want to see Joseph Parker versus Joe Joyce. Let's get our heads together and sort boxing out. We're going in the right direction. This year's been really good. Look at the unifications. Look at the undisputed fights that in all the different weight divisions. We're going in the right direction. Don't shoot ourselves in the foot now. Let's make this fight.
Yeah, and look, 1.2 million. Now, look, I'm not gonna.
Come on, man. That's
I don't
good
know.
dough.
I don't know what Joe's been paid for some of his previous fights, but 1.2 million. I doubt he's been paid anything like that. So
No.
look, he's going to be disappointed. And you know what? When he comes on
so is
in a
Adam
couple of
Morley.
minutes, we'll ask him anyway.